Welcome to ThinkTech on OC16, Hawaii's weekly newscast on things that matter to tech and to Hawaii. I'm Donna Blanchard.
And I'm Ali Yamashita.
In our show this week, we'll cover the Grassroots Institute's Gubernatorial Forum at the Pacific Club on August 22nd.
Although David Ige did not appear, the other three candidates, Duke Aiona, Jeff Davis, and Mufi Hannemann, participated in the forum.
The room was sold out, and the crowd that showed up was active and engaged.
Keli'i Akina, president of the Grassroots Institute, was the moderator for the program.
Welcome back to the Grassroots Institute Gubernatorial Forum for 2014. We begin part two. Part one presented questions that had been prepared in advance of the event, and now we're going to respond to questions that have been fielded from the audience, from those who registered for the event in advance, and from staff members of the Grassroots Institute. First of all, I want to say thank you. Mahalo to each of you who submitted a question. We appreciate your participation in this interchange of ideas. That's one of the things that we believe in deeply in the Grassroots Institute. But secondly, I'd like to give an apology. There is no way that we can possibly pose all of the questions that have been presented today. We've tried to merge questions together, and many of you asked the same question. It was asked multiple times, so we are trying to put near the front end of these questions those which are asked most frequently, and those asked least frequently, or those that seem less pertinent to gubernatorial office. We put them toward the end. We'll go through as many as we can get through. We will provide each candidate 60 seconds to respond. And at the end of our program, we will have the opportunity for each candidate to speak for 5 minutes uninterrupted. Without further ado, our order will be Mr. Hannemann, Mr. Aiona, and Mr. Davis. Candidates, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Very good. For 60 seconds to each of these questions from the audience. Mr. Hannemann. Since the launch of the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative in 2008, electric rates have gone up about 40%, a significant cost to both Hawaii's families and businesses. Many different proposals have been offered to alleviate this increase, from the natural gas conversion of oil-fired plants to the inter-island cable. Now here's the question. What is your plan for addressing Hawaii's energy concerns? You have 60 seconds.
I said earlier, with respect to one of the questions was asked, is I'm going to form this Hawaii Council of Leaders. Concept again, 5 heads are better than 1. State counties, the state does better, the counties prosper. The counties prosper, the state does better. And this is a major issue that needs to be addressed. When I worked for Governor George Ariyoshi back in the 80s, we were 90% dependent on fossil fuels. We haven't moved the needle, despite the good intentions of the Clean Energy Initiative and the like. So let's really start to get down to brass tacks. Let's look at all these alternative energy sources, be it solar, be it wind, be it wave, even geothermal. And let's do it on a community-based planning process and come up with a strategy where we can ask the utility company, get Hawaiian Electric to understand that we're all in this together. Because the status quo is very unacceptable. And in terms of using an undersea cable to bring electricity to Oahu, I'm against that if we are not benefiting the host island. Molokai, Lanai, the Big Island, Maui, wherever it is generated.
Thank you,
has to
Mr.
see a
Hannemann.
benefit.
Appreciate that. Mr. Aiona, 60 seconds to answer the question. What is your plan for addressing Hawaii's energy concerns?
Again, you got 60 seconds to answer something that's so complex. You know, the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative was a huge historical movement in regards to moving towards renewable energy. But the question is this: has it, as it was in the prelude to the question, has it lowered the cost of energy for us, the consumers? And the answer is no. So how do we do that? How do we lower the cost of energy? Talking to my good friend today, Alan Lloyd, I said, "Alan, how do we do that?" He said, "Simple. You get the cheapest form of conversion." And right now, in the mix is liquefied natural gas. So we got to look at these options. We got to look to see what is the cheapest distribution for energy. And if it's liquefied natural gas, let's work towards that. If it's geothermal, let's look towards that. But I can tell you right now, you know, it's really...
Thank you very much, Mr. Aiona. Mr. Davis, 60 seconds. What is your plan for addressing Hawaii's energy concerns?
Aloha. I am the solar guy, Jeff Davis. And thank you for that. And I'm also, my radio show, which happens every day at 5 in the afternoon, has had everybody on that. And I'm pretty much an expert, I have to say, on every form of energy out there. But it means nothing without the right political will. No, we are not in it together. Hawaiian Electric is a for-profit company. This is big, big stumbling block that we have to work with Hawaiian Electric. Not trying to demonize Hawaiian Electric, but we've got to take away their for-profit mentality. I would have to say that, as they both mentioned, 60 seconds is ridiculous. However, the bottom line is it all revolves back to the status quo has not proven to change the generation technique we've got for all these decades and decades. How can we think that the status quo will then suddenly wake up tomorrow or on November 4th and that the new legislator and the new governor will suddenly become a new dawn and a new day? We must change the status quo with the new faces.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Finally, I believe we had all three respond to this question, and so I'd like to just pause for a moment here. I appreciate the participation of each of these three candidates. I think that they're giving wonderful answers, and I'd like to ask each of the three candidates whether, in light of the fact that we have a little more time here due to the circumstances surrounding the forum, would you be open to expanding to 90 seconds for each answer?
Sign me up.
Mr. Hannemann?
Whatever, I'll play whatever.
Mr. Davis?
30 seconds, 69.
Mr. Aiona? This is an example of swift decision-making in the state of Hawaii. Give candidates a hand. So that we may get as many questions as possible, we'll proceed quickly at this time. Candidates? Very good, thank you. Mr. Aiona will answer first. We're going to talk about the Hawaii Health Exchange. The Hawaii Health Exchange has been criticized for wasting millions of dollars to little effect. Insurance premiums have risen dramatically, and some have even suggested that Hawaii seek an exemption to the Affordable Care Act in order to address some of these problems. Here is the question. How would your administration approach the Affordable Care Act and health care policy in the state? 90 seconds, Mr. Aiona.
Oh, the Affordable Care Act, if that's your question, that's a federal piece of legislation. So I would approach it in just that nature. I have to address it because it's the law. But if you're asking about the healthcare connector now, that's a different story. We know that we had probably one of the most progressive laws in regards to health coverage, health insurance coverage, our prepaid healthcare plan. We had, I think it varies, it goes anywhere from 92% to 96% of our citizens, actually covered by insurance. I want to preserve that. I want to make sure that we actually, if we can, like everyone else, I want everyone to get coverage. And so I want to make sure that we do not in any way jeopardize the Hawaii prepaid healthcare plan. Now, my understanding is that the Hawaii Healthcare Connector, if it is either exempted or eliminated, may jeopardize that. It may jeopardize that. But I don't think anybody in this room would disagree with the fact that the Healthcare Connector has been a mishap from day one. We have not received the benefit that it said it was going to give us. And so as such, I definitely want to make sure that we are saving money, that we don't waste money, but more importantly, like I said, that we are covering all of our citizens as best as we can and not jeopardizing that coverage.
Thank you, Mr. Aiona. Mr. Davis, how would your administration approach the Affordable Care Act and health care policy in the state?
Again, you're going to hear quite a bit of the same from, I think, any candidate right now. No one's going to argue that this healthcare connector is in good shape. Yes, we're all going to fall back on the idea that Hawaii is a model for healthcare, a democratic model, I'm happy to say. Of course, that's going downhill along with so many other things that we're so proud of in Hawaii. I'd love to say that aloha is the one thing that I can see not sliding into a spiral. Broken from day one might describe the Hawaii healthcare connection, and not looking at it for, I would say, the greatest number of people. Trying to separate what's good for the general public and what's good for business is almost impossible, because what's good for small business is good for the general public in many ways. Greater minds than mine, I will admit, are going to have to tackle this particular topic. Broken from day one, yes. The idea that we had a model in place, well, that model has been eaten away by the fact that, again, we are #1 in homeless per capita. That's going to be damaging. And without some forward thinking, with some out of the box, without some progressive thinking and new ideas, I'm afraid we're just going to stagnate ourselves into this and lose money and bleed money left and right. I hope the best for our state in that regard. Aloha.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Hannemann, how would your administration approach the Affordable Care Act and health care policy in the state?
No one's going to argue about the concept of providing universal health coverage for everyone. But at the end of the day, I think it's safe to assume that the Obamacare program has not worked for Hawaii, especially with respect to the Hawaii Health Connector system. So we need to press urgently to opt out of it or ask for a waiver and go back to what we've done. If it ain't broke, don't fix it with respect to the prepaid health insurance program that we have now. To pay over $20 million to have 10,000 people eligible, do the math, it's not a good return on investment. Once again, I go back to what I said earlier. It's your taxpayers' dollar, but it's money that's utilized from Washington. Here locally at the state level, you pay those taxes. But here's what the Hawaii Health Connector system also pointed out, the flaw that we have in our technology system in the state. There's some in this room that are very passionate about it, and I share that passion. We're operating in a silo mentality. We created this Office of Information Management and Technology that is leaderless, that is rudderless. I want to do for the state what I did at the city. We took an antiquated software system. We made sure that at the end of the day we upgraded that, upgraded our phones. We made sure that interoperability existed, and we had one department that was responsible for technology for the whole city and county of Honolulu. That's what a leader like Gordon Bruce did, who I selected in my cabinet. I want to take that same mentality, that same process to the state, put us in the 21st century, please.
Thank you, Mr. Hannemann. Now for our third question from the audience, beginning with Mr. Davis. Do you support term limits for members of the Hawaii legislature? Should those holding one office be required to resign before seeking another office? Because this is a compound question, I'll repeat it. Do you support term limits for members of the Hawaii legislature? And should those holding one office be required to resign before seeking another? Mr. Davis.
This is the cornerstone of my campaign. I believe that if we cannot fix our issues from the top down, we will forever attempt to put Humpty Dumpty back together. And it's not going to happen. That's what we do. Well, how we elect our officials and what their position is in our government, I would say today 98% of our elected officials would be happy to be for the people, by the people. But every 2 to 4 years, they're required to promise their firstborn to collect money in order to keep their jobs and pay their mortgages. How would you like that? Held it over your head. Term limits, it's ridiculous we don't have them. We all know why, because the ledge would have to vote it on themselves, particularly so. But state-funded campaigns where folks go out, they come back with signatures of registered voters and a $5 check to the tune of 500 people to 1,000 would take out all the riffraff. Those qualified get the same amount of money to go and to promote themselves on TV, radio, mail, you name it. Knock on every door you want, but the same dollar. That takes us through a primary. Those who go to the general, they move on. That's done in other states. If we do not take pay to play out of our elected officials' lives, they will never be for the people, by the people. It will always be for the corporation, by the corporation. Term limits are an integral part of that. I 100% support term limits for our ledge. I'm amenable to the term itself. I'm looking at possibly 2 terms or 8 years total. Without that, we'll never get the status quo to move forward and get some new blood in there.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Hannemann, do you support term limits for members of the Hawaii legislature? And should those holding one office be required to resign before seeking another office?
I had to do that in 2010. I was in the middle of the second term, and many people expressed disappointment that I decided to run for governor then, because I had to resign in the middle of my second term. So I'm very open to that. I think what's key for me is that because Les Chang and I are saying we want to put the people first, we want to make sure that your desires and wishes are respected. I'd like to hear from the public how they feel about that. I think there's a case that could be made for that. But I think going beyond that, I think we also have to look at campaign spending limits and what people can contribute to candidates. Right now, the more money you raise, it seems that, and that's one of the issues that you're speaking to, makes for a very dangerous situation here. But I think one thing that David Ige pointed out in his race, dollars don't vote, people vote. And I think at the end of the day, we need to create this better balance. But there is a danger when we shut out the system to new ideas, to new people who want to be involved and feel somehow that it's entrenched by incumbents and the like. So let's have a full-on discussion and hear from all the people and how they want to see this go forward. And I think we should look at also the congressional side too, whether there should be term limits in Congress. I think there's a case to be made in that situation also.
Clearly, this is the kind of program we need to prepare for a gubernatorial election and to more fully understand the positions of the candidates.
Kudos to Grassroots Institute for having organized the program, to the 3 candidates who came to participate, and to the attendees who came to better inform themselves and to vote intelligently on the issues involved in the forthcoming election.
ThinkTech broadcasted the audio of the program on Spreaker.com and has posted the full video of the program on YouTube. And now let's take a look at our ThinkTech calendar of events going forward.
ThinkTech broadcasts video and audio for all of our talk shows live on the internet from 1 to 5 p.m. every weekday afternoon. If you've missed a show or want to replay or share any show, they're all archived on YouTube.
Visit thinktechhawaii.com for our live stream and YouTube links, or to join our email list and get these links and advisories on our upcoming shows.
We also invite you to be a part of our live audience at our downtown studio in Pioneer Plaza. Contact Jay at thinktechhawaii.com. Raise your awareness in every way on ThinkTech.
On Wednesday, September 24th, ThinkTech will present another luncheon panel downtown forum featuring the candidates for the at-large seats on OHA, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, and allowing them an opportunity to express their positions on the issues in that election. This program will be at Laniakea. Sign up at thinktechhawaii.com.
And now here's Donna with this week's ThinkTech commentary.
I'm Donna Blanchard, and this is a ThinkTech commentary. I'd like to talk for a moment about the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. Now, if you've seen my commentaries before and were expecting something more along the lines of hubris, the sociological clan imperative, or the importance of altruism, stay tuned. There are all sorts of stories about how the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge began, but I've done some hard-hitting investigative work on the subject, 2 hours on the internet to be precise, and with the help of Slate.com, I bring you what I believe is the actual story. An August 12th Slate piece reports that the challenge came from a dare that was circulating among a group of pro athletes, including golfer Greg Norman and motorcycle racer Jeremy McGrath. Indeed, pro golfers were pouring cold water all over themselves back in June. The Golf Channel's Jason Sobel explained that Chris Kennedy, a golfer on the minor league circuit in Florida, was the first, on July 14th, to focus the freezing water fundraiser on ALS research. I've seen the Chris Kennedy video. In it, he says that he's been challenged by John Bullis, and I don't know who that is. Chris names 3 more people who he is challenging, and he says, you have 24 hours to complete the challenge, or you must donate $100 to ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. Let's hand it to Chris Kennedy for attaching the concept of throwing ice water over yourself to raise awareness and money for ALS. It certainly has raised awareness. But despite the fact that the point is to do the ice water dousing or donate, we've seen a lot of videos that don't even mention a donation. They only mention challenges and challengees. But ALS reported on their website today that they've raised $62.5 million compared to $2.4 million raised during the same period last year. Sports heroes, movie stars, and politicians have been posting these videos. It's probably fun for them, and they are doing a good deed, but it also puts the spotlight on them and keeps them within our awareness. If you and I take the challenge and post our videos, we get the warm fuzzy feelings as we are exercising the democratization of at least 2 minutes of our 15 minutes of stardom. I'm doing the same thing as John Bon Jovi and George Bush. Yay me! We like to watch because 1, we want to know who's going to be named next. Could it be me? And 2, and this is the one that really excites me, it really is hard to fake the initial reaction that comes when ice water is poured over your head. Yes, lots of contrived stuff may follow, but for the milliseconds when that water and ice hit, we are witnessing a real moment in someone else's life. We love seeing famous people do something out of the ordinary, and it turns out we love getting together behind a common cause, especially when it's become really cool to do so. Congratulations to ALS and everyone who's enjoyed the challenge, and to Malcolm Gladwell, author of The Tipping Point, who really ought to write another book right now. I'm Donna Blanchard, and this has been a ThinkTech commentary. We just opened the show, Show You on Rice, at Kumukuhua Theater. It's written by Scott Zuka, who I just had on my show, Center Stage, this week. It is such an awesome show. I cannot tell you. It's been so well received. The reviews are outstanding. And the reason is it is so real. It will speak to everyone living on this island, whether you are local or whether you are a transplant to this island. You should see this show. And also visitors should see it. It's about a local family. The son of this local family brings home his mainland haole fiance.
Perfect.
Yes. And what she goes through, they're all really wonderful people, let me say that. And there's friction, which happens between really wonderful people, and people's feelings get hurt, and people say things that they regret later, and there's a clash. But it is Scott has written a script that is funny and warm, but at the same time, it'll get you, especially if you're a transplant and you really remember what it felt like to come here. Yeah. And especially if you are a local who has had a transplant in your face, that, whether it's in a work situation or a family situation, that you have this transplant in your life and you don't really want them there. You don't necessarily want them there. You got to deal with it. So the story of this family is really nicely juxtaposed with the mainland haole fiance is also a school teacher. And the students that she is dealing with are also dealing with their own issues of accepting people for who they are and how they show up rather than preconceived notions. Yeah. It's poignant, and it's hilarious, and it's warm, and it's enlightening. It is enlightening.
Well, it's really Hawaii, not only with the mainland transplant, but with all the races coming together in the melting pot for 150 years. This is what, at a different level in different ways, this is what, every marriage outside the narrow channel of that family's upbringing, has created. So we all know this story. This is universal in Hawaii. And maybe in the world.
In the world, because for any family member, it would be much easier for us to accept someone who married into the family from our town who's a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. That would be easier for me. So, yeah, I think it's universal that when you have people come in who they eat different things and they behave differently and they think that courtesy means something a little bit different than what you mean. Yeah, it's very universal. And these stories that make us recognize our humanity and recognize our that we see a mirror on stage of our own decisions, good or bad. I think that's magic, and I think that's part of the importance of art.
This sounds like a really good one, Donna. I want to come and see this. How do I do it?
You can just talk to me. Everyone else can go to kumakahua.org. You can purchase tickets right there on our website, or you can give our box office a call. We're open from 11 to 3 every weekday, and it's 536-4441. Or come down. We've had a lot of really good reviews on this show, and we're selling out some shows, but there's always a chance that you'll be able to get a seat if you just come down before the show. They're Thursday through Saturday at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 2 p.m. And the box office opens 45 minutes. We'll be right back to wrap up this week's edition of ThinkTech. But first, we want to thank our underwriters. Okay, Ali, that wraps up this week's edition of ThinkTech. Remember, you can watch ThinkTech on OC16 several times every week. Can't get enough of it, just like Jay Fidel does. For additional times, check out oc16.tv.
Definitely, Donna. For lots more ThinkTech videos and for underwriting and sponsorship opportunities on ThinkTech on OC16, visit thinktechhawaii.com. Be a guest or a volunteer, a producer or intern, and help us reach Hawaii.
I'm Donna Blanchard. Thanks so much for joining us on ThinkTech and for supporting tech, energy, diversification, and globalism in Hawaii. You can watch this show throughout the week and tune in next Sunday evening for our next important weekly episode.
I'm Ali Yamashita. Aloha, everyone.
My name is DJ. I'm growing up with ThinkTech.